Welcome to Jets Rewind. I'm Marty Schupak in Valley Cottage, New York. I'm joined by Ray Clifford, who is in Marysville, Ohio, and the Jets just lost a game to the Miami Dolphins 11-6. In case you turned it off, they did give them a safety the last play of the game. Ray, how you doing?
Oh, I mean, all things considered, it was fine. At least it was a competitive game. I won't say it was a fun game to watch, but it was competitive. So, it
Yeah,
was,
we'll spend some time on the game, Ray. Is it anything that we didn't expect from this game going into it, Ray? We spoke about it. Anything?
actually, I thought our offense, all things considered, of how many guys were held out and how many practice squad guys were out there. I thought our offense, I know they didn't produce a lot of points, but they weren't horrendous from the standpoint of they couldn't do anything. I mean, they weren't great, but I expected a lot worse, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I have to give kudos, and I'm sorry, Jet fans, I don't like him either. He's hard to watch, but I thought under the circumstances, Joe Flacco did the best he could.
Yeah, I thought he did
I,
fine.
I thought he did okay. I mean, he was under constant pressure. One of his best plays was when he rolled out to his right, and I guess he hit Garrett Wilson, and it was a good play. So look, but by no means was our offense prolific. It was horrendous, just like it's been the last three games, where we haven't scored a touchdown. It's just been pathetically awful, and we'll just go through it quickly, and then we're going to talk about a little bit of an overview for the season. Ralph is not here. He's got a day off, which he earned, but I'm sure he's with us in
He
spirit.
wisely bailed on today.
Out, of course, but he's happy because the Patriots lost.
Me too.
Yeah, so, and me too. Also, I was going back and forth in that game too, watching it. They had
Yeah.
both stations here in New York. But anyway, the Jets lose the game. There was no score in the first quarter. A few things I wrote down, Ray, and you chirp in anytime you want to comment that there was a miss snap that went for a 22-yard loss for the Dolphins that benefited the Jets. And I thought the play afterwards, they faked like a run. They throw a quick out pass, but Bryce Huff made a nice play getting out there, really anticipating. I thought that was good. And the other thing I'll tell you, for whatever reason, they had, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure to start the game, uh, Tomlinson at right guard, when they eventually moved to left guard, he was awful. Right, he was just pathetic, and they moved
Yeah.
him to left guard. He wasn't much better. But any comments at the beginning of the game, Ray?
Well, I'll be honest. I didn't see a lot of the beginning of the game. I mainly, yeah, I was off and on in the first half, but I think part of the problem with Tomlinson is I don't know if he's ever played right guard. Honestly, I think he was a left guard his whole time. So you want to switch a guy to the other side who doesn't play it. It's not just, hey, okay, I'm just going to the other side to do the same thing. It's not the same thing. So it's a process to move over. So I'm not surprised he struggled some, but he's struggled at both sides all year. So he's either got to really show a bounce back or they got to move on from him for next year. But we'll see what they do.
I think I don't know for sure, Ray. I think his second year is guaranteed. I think the cap hit would be enormous.
Yeah, I think he's got a pretty good
I, I,
size cap
I
hit,
think
but
he's going to be here if somehow he could bounce back. Man,
yeah,
it was just pathetic, like the rest of the offensive line. Second quarter, we traded field goals 3-3. And I just want a couple of things that stood out. There was a nice punt return by Barrios. There was a nice punt by Braden Mann, who, except for his last punt, he punted really well today. And I made a note again, Tomlinson on pass protection, the guy went right around him. There was one play, Ray, I'm not sure if you saw it. It was an incomplete pass to Garrett Wilson down the right, kind of the right sideline. But I made a note that Garrett Wilson has ups because he
oh,
so
he's amazing.
Do you remember the play I'm talking about?
Yeah, and I think that's the basketball player in him comes out. He's able to get up there and make, God, get his hands on the ball. If he doesn't catch it, he comes oh so close so damn many times. It's just amazing how he can, kind of contort his body a little bit, stay in bounds, get his feet down, do these things while in the air. I mean, he was our offense today.
He was our whole
Yeah.
offense.
In the second half, I mean, literally every pass went to him. It was.
And yeah, you're right. And
Amazing.
no rushing game, but I still thought my guy Zonovan Knight was
Yeah.
going to break it. He just.
Yeah, well, I feel bad for the runners because they're getting nothing to work with. There's not a hole to be found anywhere. They've got to. It's almost always on second effort that they get any yards at all because you're usually being hit either right at the line or behind the line. So I feel, I feel bad for our whole running, group of running backs because they aren't really getting anything to work with.
Right. And Ty Johnson, I thought he looked good to me the little time he was there.
Mm-hmm.
He had a nice third down reception for 12 yards, but he made a pretty good effort trying to block the blitzes a few times. So I'll tell you, he
did.
Yeah. And Ray, remember last year there was that one game where he dropped 2 or 3 passes out of the backfield, and I had said, I don't want to ever see this guy in the field again.
Yeah.
He quietly, without an offensive line, that has not had an awful season just for the fact that he's caught a few passes and he gives an effort.
Well, I think he's a great depth guy. I wouldn't have a problem with them keeping him around. I mean, he's not an expensive guy. He's basically, he hasn't gotten injured, so he's there. He makes plays. I think he's improved on his blocking, and I think he's a valuable depth guy to us. So I would happily keep him around unless somebody is just too good not to get rid of, and we have to get rid of them.
Right. In that second quarter, what's his name? Shepard went offsides on a play, and unfortunately, the play before that, Michael Clemens made a great play on a tackle for loss, and he did it a couple of times. Ray, that stuff just drives me crazy. I don't want to see Shepard here next year.
I think we talked about it before. We're all shocked he's still here this year, but he just seems to still be there. But we'll see. Next year's next year, and who knows? We'll see what who they have to pick from. If they have a deep defensive line again, then they're going to have to make some decisions, and we'll go from there.
A lot of decisions, and Garrett Wilson, he made a highlight film play in that second quarter. I guess he caught the ball and I guess 2 or 3 times made some moves, and the announcer even said, Ray, that it looked like he counted like 5 guys missing him, and
he ducked under the one guy, ducked under the tackle, and kept going. It was every time you think, all right, well, that's good, he got some yards, and then he somehow works his way out of it and gets another 4 or 5 yards. It's unbelievable, his knack for, not even breaking tackles, just making a move that makes somebody miss, and he keeps going.
We got to get a quarterback for this guy.
No,
we got to get a quarterback. This guy is like something special. He really is. And Tyler Conklin, he made one of the nicest catches of the year. It wasn't a long catch. I don't know even know if they got a first down. It was thrown behind him a little bit, and he like scooped it with one hand. Right, that that guy's good. And Ralph,
I like him.
Yeah, and Ray, Ralph had pointed out last week about if it came down to Uzama or Conklin, and he brought out some good points. How Conklin has more athleticism than Uzama, so that's going to be a tough choice. What
I don't know that he's more athletic than Uzama. I think Uzama's more of a. Well, first of all, Uzama's more the guy that if you hit him on a seam, he's going to take it for more. Conklin's more the lumbering guy, but I like them both for different reasons, and but I think cost wise, we're probably going to end up getting rid of one of them. But I still think it won't be a big deal because Ruckert, I think, will be ready to step in come next year.
Right, right. And yeah, there was a Jeremy Ruckert sighting, mostly blocking plays. He did
That's fine.
one reception for 8 yards on one target, which is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Just get him in there. And I think next year we're going to see Ruckert on a regular basis. I think he's going to be a guy who will fill a lot of needs.
Right, right. And I want to spend a few minutes because we got the ball back after Miami had called timeout. And Ray, could you explain to me what our coach was doing at the end of the first half, letting the clock run out, and I'm talking about a defeatist attitude. Were they going crazy where you were watching the game?
No, it just seemed like no, everybody was just kind of like, I think we're in the mode of what I think they were too just down from losing last week that it didn't really come across as a huge deal. It was just like, I can't remember now exactly what he did, and I was the same way. What are they doing here? What exactly are we doing?
38 seconds left where
Yeah,
he might have had all three, but he maybe had 2 timeouts.
I think he had 2.
Kind of strange because in the second half he had used 2 timeouts like in the first 8 minutes of the third.
Yeah.
Which they could have used at the end of the game.
Yeah.
When they had the ball for those few seconds left.
What was the second one? I'm trying to remember now what the second one was. I thought,
called one because he didn't like what he saw. The second one I forgot, but
I forget. And that's the one I was going, might have been better off just, letting that whatever it was go. Yeah, delay a game. That's right.
Right.
Let them have the 5 yards. Keep the timeout.
You're right. Actually, when that happened, I got a text from one of our favorite listeners, Rob August. He said the exact same thing. Speaking of Rob August, a quick shout out before we get into the second half. Anthony Pelletieri, he's down in Naples, Florida, Ray, and he is one of our most loyal listeners, huge Jet fans. So I want to thank you, Anthony. I love Naples, Florida. I love that pair over there. I'll be down there hopefully next year. Keep listening, Anthony, and let the people on the west coast of Florida know, all the Jet fans know about the podcast. Anyway, the third quarter, Ray, did you want to touch on anything else in the first half at all? I don't know if you remembered anything.
No, I think, the first half was pretty much we covered. I think it was fine. I expected so little out of the game. It's hard to say that I was disappointed by anything when I saw who was put on injured reserve and who was called up from the practice squad. The only thing I'll say about that was they put Bradley and I I called him up off the practice squad and then made him inactive. And I was like,
I didn't understand that. I would have liked
to get him in the game, get him a few reps.
He was one of our preseason highlights.
Yeah, I was looking forward to seeing him in there, seeing, maybe if he'd, make a play, see what happened.
Maybe they're trying to hide him in case
it could be.
Walks, he's our secret.
Maybe they were just getting him a regular roster paycheck for a week. I don't know.
Right, and I assume, and I don't you and Ralph don't yell at me. Chris Streveler, I assume he was active. I would have put in a play or two with him too.
I mean, I wouldn't have, because with the way they were running their defense, I thought Flacco was under fire all the time. Maybe Streveler would have been a change of pace, but that they would have just played him to run the ball. That's all.
I was just going to say, and I had no problem doing a play action rollout and trying to hit either Conklin or Ruckert.
I agree.
They didn't do it. Third quarter, they scored a field goal. We're down 6-3. I made a couple of notes. I put Brady Mann's best game probably till that last punt. I put Jordan Whitehead sucks at tackling. Bryce Huff is great. Let's see. I put 1 timeout left with 8 minutes to go in the third quarter, and I put that Ty Johnson did a great job picking up the blitz. Anything you want to go over in the third quarter? I know we're going through this fast, but we want to get to to the overall quickly before we close this out, Ray? Anything do you remember in the third quarter you want to address?
No, I mean, I know that they had the one drive where Mostert, I think that was the third quarter, when Mostert ran on him like 3 times for a bunch of yards and ran over Whitehead again, who just drives me nuts when I see guys that don't wrap up and tackle guys. And Whitehead's done it like 3 or 4 times, and it's always turned into a bigger play than it had to be, if not completely huge, like T. Higgins going all the way to the house.
By the way, Ray, in last week's Jets 2-Minute Tuesday, one of the things I mentioned is I hope they activate Bryce Hall. Why not try him at safety? He's like, he's fairly tall, but
he was out there a lot, wasn't he?
I was going to say he was out there, but unfortunately, Ray, they kept targeting whoever he was covering. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, those are tough matchups because Miami's got such good receivers that, if it's the first, second, third receiver, however they want to go about it, they're all pretty good. So there isn't a big drop off in any of their top 3 receivers. So
right. And talking about that, Sauce Gardner, who again drives me crazy sometimes, he played really well today, I thought. In coverage, he got called once for holding, and the guy caught the pass anyway, Waddle, and they got some great receivers.
They do.
But the one thing, Ray, and we spoke about this, I wasn't sure it was the third or fourth quarter, and gosh darn, I hate to complain about referees, but I'm telling you, they got to do something in the NFL. I'm sure all fans that lose games feel the way I do and you do, Ray, that we get crapped on with some of these calls and non-calls, and we'll get to the horse collar call in a minute. Yeah. But there was a run. We had them in the hole. I think it was the late third quarter, and they had or it could have been the fourth. They had a running play, and my God, there were 2 holds on our defensive players, and even the announcers said, well, there are at least a couple of holds out there. Right, it just drives me crazy.
2 of them right in front. I don't know how a ref misses that. It's right on the end of the line, so it's not like that's not where the ref can see. And it's 2 guys almost right next to each other, and they miss it both. And the guy goes around the corner and gets, I don't remember how many yards, but quite a few, 20 some yards, I think he went. I think as usual, I think the reffing is inconsistent. I think I would like to say it usually favors the home team, but that doesn't seem to be true with us. So I won't say that that's the case, but it's baffling to me. And it's not just Jets games either. It's not just the Jets. The bar I'm at has a lot of games on, and the Pittsburgh Browns game was on, which was a big one today. Pittsburgh didn't get to go to the playoffs because we didn't win, but oh well. But in that game, and it was a big play at the time, Deshaun Watson scrambled a little bit and we got tackled. I mean, it was a massive face mask, no flag. It was, and when they showed the replay, it even looked worse than it did live. And I was just like, that's the kind of call that they'd miss for us too. I mean, right. It just unbelievable. I mean, I was like, it's not like he was in a scrum where you couldn't see it. It's right. These things that are on the outside, and that's what that play for the Jets game brought to mind for me was that was on the end of the line. 2 guys, either the side judge or the ref in the back, had to see that. One of the 2. How do you not see that? Because that's as he's going around them, they're being held. But
all year long, Ray. And what's funny, you mentioned Pittsburgh. I'm on a few threads online, and one is a intense Steeler fan, and he sends me a tweet, or it could have been a text, and it had the picture of we're going to get to in a second, the Quincy Williams play they call the horse collar. And he puts down, he said, to all my Steeler friends, this is the BS play that was called.
It cost them the playoffs.
Which is not 100%.
And they can say what they want about that. But, if a guy's got his hands on the guy's jersey right in front, and then his other one's not on his, which to me, the horse collar means it's the back of the jersey.
Right.
He's got it on his far shoulder and he's bringing it down. Okay, it's on the shoulder, but it's not it's not a horse collar.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's not what it's not what it's all about. You can't, just because the guy, you know, falls backwards as he's being tackled, and that's not a horse collar. That's not what the reason that whole rule was put in place, was not that kind of tackle.
Yeah, and look, we tied it up. I'm sorry, no, they went ahead 6-3. We
Yeah.
tied it up, and then they went ahead, and it was all over. They got a 50-yard field goal. They got a save
Well, that horse collar led to the go-ahead field goal.
to get to that. And my fourth quarter notes, I put Flacco got in a rhythm, and that's thanks to Garrett Wilson. That
If with me and the guy that we were sitting at the same table there watching the game, and it's like he said he just needs to throw it to Garrett Wilson because he'd made a couple of catches, and after that it seemed like every play.
oh yeah,
Another one, Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson.
yeah.
He was our whole offense.
And he made a catch, and actually they overturned it on
I thought they might let that one stand.
4th-and-1. I thought so too, but I didn't think it was a catch. It was close.
It was close, and I couldn't tell if he had his arm kind of under the ball as it moved. So
Right.
I thought they might let it stand, but I understood it either way, so I wasn't really pissed about that one. But
Yeah, and they I made a note. That one time we had Bryce Hall on Tyreek Hill, which I couldn't understand. It's
how
having
about when we had Quincy Williams on Tyreek Hill, and he defended it.
we got to. I agree with you and Ralph. We got to bring him back, Quincy Williams.
Oh yeah, he's got to come back.
He
He just fires up the crowd and the team with his, I know the big hits sometimes can cost us, but his upside is so much more important than, the occasional goof that he makes.
You want to hear the type of game he had, Ray?
Yeah.
10 tackles, 9 of which was solo, 1 sack, and 3 tackles for losses.
Yeah, he was outstanding.
Phenomenal today. Phenomenal game. But talking about that call, it was like a 3rd and 2, and it was like was it a run or a pass? It was out to the flat in the left.
I thought it was a pass.
Could have been a pass out to the flat in the left. And Quincy Williams, like he was doing all day long, runs to tackle the guy, gets him, pulls him down, and what I saw was the shirt was a little below the collar in the back and mostly in the front. Threw him down. I saw a flag go. I didn't know what the flag was for until they mentioned horse collar, and I just went nuts.
Yeah.
I said, this is like
unbelievable. It was not only below the collar, but when you watch the replay, it was totally to the shoulder pad side. It wasn't even in the back, like where his nameplate was around the back collar, like they normally call it. It was not a horse collar.
No, terrible. We ended up losing the last play of the game. We tried to razzle dazzle. It would have been nice if we had a couple of timeouts, Coach Sala.
Yeah.
When you're meeting with Coach Sala, would he mention that the timeouts that game, and also the what was the other game we're talking about? The timeouts, was it the Lions game?
The Lions game.
The Lions game too. We got to get some experience up in the booth somewhere. And Ray, I just want to let you know that I was watching the Jets post game show, and I think it was Connor. One of the 2 Connors were on. Connor Hughes, and who's the other Connor? Whatever.
Don't know.
There's another one. But anyway, he was saying he wants the Jets to get a special offensive assistant coach, and he wants to keep Mike LaFleur. So that's exactly what you were talking about.
If they're going to keep him, that would be my thing. If you're going to keep him, then get somebody in there to work with him. But as far as I think that's one of the hardest things for new coaches, and I think it takes them the longest to get the handle on, is the managing timeouts and time and all that stuff. I think they've just got so much on their plate that somehow it just gets lost in the shuffle during a game when there's so much going on. And I understand that. I mean, especially as the head coach, the more stuff, the more you're involved with both sides of the ball, the more you got demands on you, and you're caught up in the moment of the game, and you're not thinking about things that seem obvious to us watching.
Right.
And one of them would be the clock. And who isn't in Salah's ear saying, let's call a timeout? I don't know, but he needs that guy. So
Right.
they
Right.
hire an assistant to do it. I'm all for it.
Right. Okay, here's I just got a tweet from someone that said if the Jets designate Tomlinson as a post June 1st cut, they save $13.1 million in space and take a $4.3 million dead money hit this year and 4.3 million dead hit in 2024. And then he poses the question, would you rather have Tomlinson at 17.4 million or pay him 4.3 not to be here and open up 13.1 million extra? I think you got to move on from him after June 1st. I mean, the free agent period starts in March. So
Well, then yeah, as long as you have something else in place, I'd
right.
say yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
the thing.
you could definitely upgrade. You got to move
Well,
on.
the nice thing about that is they can sign whoever they want and be over the cap until that point. They don't have to be under the cap until I think basically the season starts, do they?
No, Ray, I'm just getting, you don't see, I'm just getting another tweet from
Oh, see where his arm is though? If you go back to that video and look at where his back.
I know, and you Jets Rewind fans that are listening to this, not on our YouTube channel, I'm just holding up to the camera to Ray the horse collar call, and it's just such a bad call. And
Horrible. Well, we didn't have the sound up loud enough. What were the announcers saying?
They said one of them said, "I don't think that's a horse collar. I don't think that's
okay."
The right.
The only thing we saw was because I couldn't hear it because they had the Browns Steelers volume up, and we understand that was really an important game compared to the Jets one. But although it was important to the Steelers, but I couldn't hear what they said. But the only thing I saw in the replay was the guy when they were doing it in slow motion circled his hand up there, which I knew that's what the call was about. But I didn't know if he was saying that really isn't a horse collar, if he was saying it was. So I wondered what they said there.
Right. Now, Ray, somebody tweeted me. I don't know how they could know by now. Here it is. Somebody tweeted that the
What's
Jets,
their Twitter handle?
I won't mention it. I don't want to give you publicity, but they're pretty good.
Okay.
I'll give you the order of the draft. You ready?
Yeah.
Chicago, Houston, Denver, Arizona, 4. Picking 5 is Indianapolis. Picking 6 is, I guess, Detroit. They get the Ram pick, and I'm sorry.
Well, Detroit could change. They still have to play. They could be in, right?
Right. Well, no, that's the Ram pick.
Oh, gotcha. That's their other one.
Now, also, just so you know, somehow, I guess the Ravens get the Denver pick. Is that right? Or the Seahawks? The Seahawks get the Denver pick.
Yeah, Seahawks do. Yeah.
Okay, so Seahawks pick 3rd. The Lions pick 6th. Picking 7th, Las Vegas. Picking 8th is Atlanta. 9th, Carolina. 10th is the Eagles with the New Orleans pick.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
11th is the Tennessee. 12th is the Texans with the Cleveland pick. And 13 is the New York Football Jets. Just so you know, Ray, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Listen, Jet fans, when you talk about Jet luck, here's perfect proof. There are 6 teams that ended up on 7 and 10, and we picked the last out of all of them.
Because it's probably teams with our paper tiger wins we probably beat.
Right. Yeah.
Well, some of them are ahead of us because of the trades, right?
Well, look, but you got to understand here. Picking 8th, Atlanta 7 and 10. Picking 9th, Carolina 7 and 10. With New Orleans pick at 10, who's 7 and 10, the Eagles pick.
Yeah.
Picking 11th is Tennessee at 7 and 10.
Yeah.
Picking 12. With the Cleveland pick is the Texans at 7 and 10, and we picked 13th at 7 and 10. So Atlanta has the 8th pick. We have the 13th pick. We have the same record. It's just Jets luck. That's all it is.
Yeah, that never fails.
It's just unbelievable. You can't make it up. It's like us, the whole thing with the Trevor Lawrence. But anyway, quickly, Flacco 18 for 33, 149 yards. Zonovan Knight 12 for 22. I still love that guy. Ty Johnson 5 for 12. Give
Yeah,
Ty Johnson
nobody ran. It didn't matter who.
no, it didn't matter, but give Ty Johnson credit. That guy played hard, and
He had a good game.
I wanted to mention one of the best plays of the game, Ray. I don't know if you got a close look. Zonovan Knight fumble. He recovered his own fumble. It had to be one of the most
It
athletic.
landed right back on him somehow.
Yeah, that's a great play.
Yeah.
Receiving, Garrett Wilson, 9 receptions, 89 yards. It seemed like it was like 20 receptions. Corey Davis, 1 reception, 17 yards. A good way to end your Jet career. Ty Johnson, 2 for 13 yards. Tyler Conklin, 2 for 13. Elijah Moore, again, 1 for 11. It was a great reception. They got to find a way to get him the ball. Ruckett, 1 for 8. Carter, 2 for 1. And that's it. I just don't want to go through. I mean, Quincy Williams had the 10 tackles. Mosley had 7. Sauce Gardner, 6. Tony Adams had 6. He went out with a concussion. DJ,
Yeah, I saw that. It was our guy who hit him. I think it was Mosley.
Michael Carter had 5 tackles. Jordan Whitehead, what a bum he's turning out to be. I mean, right.
I've said that since the Cincinnati game when he tried to knock T. Higgins off his feet and gave up a 50-yard touchdown. I was like, no, this isn't what we want.
Tampa, and Todd Bowles was the defensive coordinator, Tampa Bay. He probably said, let the son of a gun go. The Jets are
the Jets will take him.
Oh my God. Quan Alexander, you got to bring him back.
Oh, I like him a lot.
Oh, he's good. He's really good. I like him a lot. I thought Jamie and Sherwood made a couple of plays. And I'll tell you who I like. Sporadically, it didn't seem like he was in there a long time, but Jermaine Johnson, when he was in there, he looked pretty good to me.
I think Jermaine Johnson next year will be more of a force. I think he showed it this year. I wouldn't say he was never terrible. He just wasn't, I thought that we'd see more, but I think he'll continue to grow. I like Jermaine Johnson for next year. I like Quan Alexander. I think Jamie and Sherwood could be an important part.
Right.
Just don't know if we're gonna end up keeping Mosley around or how we're gonna do it, but we need an upgrade there. We need a guy in the middle who can just literally just stuff everything.
Right. I just want to do something quickly. Then we're going to talk about. We're going to end it with the Jets' future and tomorrow's Black Monday. I'm just going on PFF, the top 100 draft prospects. Just quickly, the top 3 offensive linemen they have. 7th best player, tackle, Peter Skoronski from Northwestern. He's on most lists as the best offensive lineman. And also on number 18, which you probably know, Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State, who's a tackle, and he played right guard last year. Okay, and the guy I like is they have him rated 25, Broderick Jones from Georgia, who I really liked. He's allowed no sacks, no hits, and only 4 hurries on 295 pass blocking snaps. So I really like that, but we'll get into that a lot more. Ray, it is, by the way, Ray, just looking at this list, we picked 13. Guess who PFF has as the 13th best player in the country? Close to your heart. You ready?
Yeah.
Tight end Michael Mayer, Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah, no. If we needed a tight end, I'd be all into that. But unfortunately, I don't think any of those linemen will be available at 13. I mean, I can hope, but linemen are so highly sought after nowadays that if the top 3 don't go in the top 10, that means either a lot of teams needed quarterbacks and wide receivers or there was an overload of them. But so we'll see.
You will see.
I'm hopeful.
It was a long way to the end of April.
Yeah.
Ray, tomorrow we find out the fate of a number of coaches. And as the real season begins for Jet fans, this was just preliminary. This is like preseason, like it is every year. Your take, I keep waffling back and forth. I think now there's a chance that Mike LaFleur might come back with the scenario you painted. What's your feeling right now?
I always thought he was coming back. I think unless absolutely forced to, which I think would be a problem, Sal wasn't going to get rid of him. I just wasn't sure if it was going to come back and just let him keep going as he was, or if they were going to bring in someone else to kind of mentor him or give him another perspective on things. So, and I agree with that. If he's going to keep him, he's got to have somebody to kind of, show him some options, because I think relying on weekly conversations with his brother is not helping. He needs to, somebody else said it, it was another podcast I was listening to, but and the guy was saying that he's a good play caller, but he gets to a certain point, it's usually in the red zone, and he loses his mind and starts trying trick plays. And they mentioned the same things we did about going into a empty backfield on the goal line against Minnesota. He mentioned shotgun empty backfield, even worse. The end arounds, the wide receiver screens in that part of the field where it's so compact, you don't, the defense is already up close. So, they mentioned a lot of the things that we talked about, and I was like, so a lot of people are seeing this. LaFleur needs to kind of rein in the tricky stuff and go with stuff that just, if you're running the ball well, run the damn ball. You don't need to all of a sudden go, okay, we're going to do an end around because they aren't expecting it, and then blow it up and lose 10 yards. We need to.
Right. It's interesting. And I think we spoke about this. He's like the worst first down play caller I've ever seen in my life.
Up the middle for a yard.
And also he's the worst scripted play caller. If you look, Adam Gase with Sam Darnold, as bad as they were not bad.
The first drive was usually pretty decent.
Yeah. They usually came away with points. Too many times it was 3 points, but they came away.
It always gave you hope, and then things would just kind of go nowhere from there.
Ray, shot in the dark. What are are there any chances that and just tell me what you think, 1 in 5, 1 in 10, that Woody has just been fed up and he gets rid of Robert Saleh and the whole coaching staff? What's your feeling?
If I have to give it any percent, 1 in 10 would be the most I would give. Might he say get rid of somebody else? Like you got to replace LaFleur. Even if you keep him on the staff, you got to replace him. Or so I don't think they'll do anything with the defense. The defense was our best unit, so I think Ulbricht's safe, and they might need to change some personnel on the defense, which I think they do. But as far as coaches go, I think Ulbricht's safe. I think Boyer's safe from the special teams, although he had some few iffy games, and but I think the one who's going to be under fire is LaFleur, and therefore,
Calabrese. I think he's
Calabrese. Yeah.
How about the special teams coach of the Patriots? They returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns.
Oh,
today.
Yeah. Now we can quit talking about Ted Ginn Jr. killing us, but yeah, I think they were both like 100-yard ones too. So I know one of them was anyway, but could Woody say there have to be some changes? I could see him doing it, but I don't get the feeling Woody's going to get really involved in it at this point. I think he's still willing to let Joe Douglas decide and make the decisions. But I hope Joe's seeing things like everybody else is, that we can't continue with a coordinator who isn't, he's not consistent. I won't say he's no good, because he's kind of like Zach. He shows flashes that he can do things, but then he'll, certain times, and it's usually in the red zone, I don't know if he just outthinks himself. He thinks he's tricky. The best coaches are basically the ones who say, this is what we do best and this is what we're doing. And until you show us you can stop it, that's what we're going to do. We're going to beat you with what works best. He doesn't do that.
Right.
He completely flies the coop and does things that
Yep.
nobody expects, but they don't work. That's the problem. If they worked, everybody'd be just raving about them, but they always end up blowing up in our face and everybody's pissed off. And it's like, what are you doing? We went from first and goal to, first and goal from the 6 instead of the 1.
Right.
You call some stupid play and lose us yards.
And we've gotten stupid penalties in the red zone.
Yeah, we get stupid penalties still. We always have.
But Ray, and I don't know how to handle this, but they've got to investigate, and I'm sure they're doing it, but the number of injuries that the Jets are getting year after year, in 2020 and 21, they led the NFL in the percentage of their salary cap on the injured list. I don't know what it was this year, but it was a disaster. I don't want to say I keep saying they should investigate the turf, but the Giants, they made the playoffs, whatever. But I don't know what's going on. They constantly getting all these injuries.
Did I hear they're changing the turf next year?
I didn't hear that, but
I thought I read something. Maybe I'm confused, but I thought I read something about something with the turf for next year.
Yeah.
So if that's an issue, fine. But I think, we've talked about it before. I think part of it's on Saleh for being too easy on him in the preseason.
Right.
I believe that, and I have no reason not to. In my own mind, I'm just convinced that we're just so soft on them. They aren't ready for, the level that they come at, that these teams, especially when we play the Ravens of all teams in week 1, who go at it like the preseason's a regular season.
Two things I was going to mention. I was going to mention that team. It's a coincidence you mentioned it. Last year, did they make the playoffs? Because the Ravens last year, they got in so many injuries. If you go back, I never saw anything like it.
Yeah.
Incredible. The other thing I want to mention about the Ravens, I don't think they're going to re-sign Lamar Jackson. I pray that Woody Johnson doesn't go after him, because I just think it's a bad choice. I'm not saying
I don't want.
He's a bad player. It's the way he plays, and he's at the prime of his career, a young player who was an MVP. And I hope Woody gets attracted by these guys, by the Brett Favres, by the Tim Tebow's, Ray. I just hope he doesn't do that. He would have to commit a lot of draft picks to him, and I don't want to do it.
Not only that, but the last 2 years he's had injuries, and so that's what everybody said when he came out, is he runs too much and all this. And people say, well, yeah, the injury occurred in the pocket. It doesn't matter where it occurred. Part of it is your body's just going to take so many hits and you're going to start showing the results. And that's what people are starting to think now. And you can't, first of all, Baltimore could franchise them if they really don't want to get rid of them. So, I don't believe Baltimore's going to let him go anywhere. I sure as hell wouldn't package together all our draft picks that we would need to package together to get them, and then have them on the sideline for 8 or 9 games a year, because, I'm amazed at Baltimore's. I think they still made the playoffs, right? They just weren't in control of anything. So they made the playoffs, but, you aren't going to go out anywhere without him. And right now, I must, they thought he might play this week, and then they said he's definitely out. So who knows if he's going to be? It was going to be 3 weeks, and now it's going to be like 5 or 6. So,
right. Ray, I'm going to be on the air Tuesday night for my Jets 2-Minute Tuesday. I'm going to have a lot to say too, because I'm sure we're going to find some things out. So for Ray Clifford in Marysville, Ohio, and Marty Schupak in Valley Cottage, and enjoy the college championship game tomorrow, everyone. Until next time, for Jets Rewind and JetsRewind.com.